In this section, we'll consider some strategies to ensure you have cohesion in your co-teaching team, maintaining a culture of professional respect and sharing enabled by clear protocols and frameworks for things like communication and offering feedback. We'll start by exploring some really simple strategies that co-teachers can use to build and maintain a cohesive teaching team. Angela Peary is an American teacher and educational researcher and has put this collection of strategies together based on her own experience and contemporary evidence on co-teaching. Peary argues that co-teachers need to respect one another in order to co-teach successfully. It's fine to disagree with your colleagues' ideas, but raise your opinion respectfully and ensure discussion focuses on the practices, not on the person. Co-teachers should define their roles and responsibilities from the outset. If one of you will be responsible for responding to student or parent emails Monday to Wednesday and the other one on Thursday and Friday, work this out early and stick to it. Likewise, if you're going to pilot mark all assessment tasks together and then split the rest in half evenly, decide this and then stick to it. Parent-teacher nights are another thing to work out early in the game. Clearly defining these roles and responsibilities from the beginning eases tension by ensuring workload can be distributed evenly and enabling discussions when one responsibility may not be adequately met. Note that this may look different in different partnerships. Your responsibility in a co-teaching hub may be different to your responsibility when you're co-teaching with a learning support teacher. Be flexible. Sometimes it's worth it to set aside your favourite strategy and try one suggested by your colleague. Remember that you're all equal players in your teaching team. Try to plan together as often as possible. Ask for time to enable this, and if you can't have it, make your own time and protect it. If this has to happen by Zoom or Teams, then that's better than nothing at all. Use this time to plan lesson goals, select co-teaching approaches, and consider student grouping and differentiation. Keep communicating. Touch base during lessons, debrief afterwards, and communicate as you produce resources and mark students' work. Open, constant communication is key to making sure you remain on the same page. And finally, try not to take yourself too seriously. Opening up your classroom door and sharing your space and students with a colleague is challenging for everyone, even for your students. If a teaching strategy doesn't work out, try not to be embarrassed. It probably just shows your co-teacher that it's okay for them to take a risk too. A bit of humour goes a long way in the classroom. We're great at using this when it's just us and our students, but try and keep the mood upbeat in your space when you're co-teaching too. Humour builds rapport with your students and your colleague, and this builds strong teaching teams. A great tool to use to enable all this is the co-teaching agreement. Co-teaching agreements are co-created documents that set out clear expectations and protocols around co-planning, co-teaching, co-debriefing, and co-reflecting. These are developed by co-teachers right at the beginning of their partnership, and they're usually signed off by a supervisor. Co-teachers should stick to the strategies and protocols laid out in the agreement, but they can be updated if some strategies or protocols just don't work out. The co-creation is essential here. A scaffold is useful, but the agreements are only powerful when co-teachers engage in conversation about the protocols that will guide their team and take collective ownership of these. To develop a co-teaching agreement, co-teachers should start by discussing the expectations they have of their team. They might agree that they want to maintain a professional working relationship, reach a goal consensus for their students, and keep their teaching practice student-centred. These become the principles that guide their co-teaching agreement. Then, co-teachers should work through a list of considerations. These are the aspects of co-teaching that require agreement: what roles and responsibilities each member of the team will have, when you will co-plan, how you will manage student behaviour and reporting, what approaches to co-teaching you might use. To make decisions about each of these considerations, co-teachers should engage in open dialogue and share their thoughts, brainstorm ideas on how to make each consideration work, and then co-create a statement to articulate their plans. This should be documented in writing. It can be useful for school leaders to establish a set of considerations that all co-teachers will discuss, and a series of questions to guide discussion and decisions within each consideration. As you can see here, co-teachers will want to consider how to divide up roles around resource collection and the physical setup of the classroom. They might want to agree on an array of co-teaching approaches they feel comfortable using and agree upon strategies for sharing resources with students online. They will definitely want to decide on and articulate when and how frequently they will co-plan and agree upon a way to share co-planning documents and resources. Here are a couple of examples of what your final co-teaching agreement might look like. We really encourage you to develop your own as a school with your own list of considerations and questions, but these will give you an idea of what some of your DOE colleagues are using. This one on the left lists the considerations at the top and then offers co-teachers a series of questions they can answer to guide their discussion about the consideration. Their ideas are recorded in the brainstorm box, and then their final statement is recorded below. In the second example on the right, we have a co-teaching agreement ready to be developed between the classroom teacher and a learning and support teacher. You can see this one is a bit more complex because the co-teaching is infrequent. There's a section for scheduling, along with a list of documents that need to be shared. The co-teaching approaches to be used are listed, and there are broader categories for discussion of and agreement on co-teaching practices. And this concludes our section on co-teaching cohesion. In this section, we explored some advice for how to create cohesive, successful co-teaching partnerships. We also looked at the value and structure of co-teaching agreements, considering the process teams should go through to create their own, and reviewing some examples from DOE schools who are using co-teaching successfully.